Good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 7th of August, 2023. I realize my camera's not quite straight. I'm just going to change just a little bit, because this will annoy me otherwise. Hey, how's it going? So, I was reading today in the newspaper that the government have come up with another grand wheeze for how to deal with people who have come here to claim asylum. Now, you've got to understand that the first thing to know is you cannot claim asylum here unless you're from Ukraine or Hong Kong or certain parts of Syria or in certain circumstances, Afghanistan. You can't come here to claim asylum legally. There is no legal route. You can't get on a plane and say, I'm going to the UK, or why are you going? Business or pleasure? Well, actually, I'm planning to ask for asylum because I'm being persecuted. I think my family are going to die. There's my family with me. We're all together. We're going to go to the UK and we're going to try and start a new life there. You know, that country that invaded nearly every country, other country in the world. We're going to be, going over there to give back to that wonderful country that invaded us all those years ago. Anyway, that's not allowed. That way of getting into the UK and therefore starting the asylum seeker application process isn't acceptable. It is not allowed by British, people in charge, right? You can't go to a British embassy and ask for asylum. It just doesn't work that way. They always say no. They pretty much always say no. I'm sure some clever dick in the comments might be able to find someone who actually managed to get diplomatic asylum in an embassy in South Africa in the 1980s, but I really doubt it. I mean, you can have a look, but I don't think that's going to be too many. The only way to legally claim asylum in the UK is to step foot on British soil, i.e. get a boat that brings you into British territorial waters, and then you are the responsibility of the British government until your claim is looked at, and then you can actually be deported back to from whence you came if you can't prove that you are actually a genuine asylum seeker. That's supposed to be the way the system's supposed to happen, and it's a half-our system. Obviously, having to come here illegally isn't great. Not great at all. Okay, so that was the system. Now, with the illegal migration bill, which is correctly called because it is actually an illegal bill, it's illegal under international law, they've made it illegal, the Tories have made it illegal to claim for asylum if you came here via illegal methods. Actually, there's no such thing as illegal method, so this might get taken to court, I don't know. But the reality is that unconventional means of getting into a country was something that was accepted by literally all the people who signed up to not just the UN Convention of Human Rights, Article 14, which states that anyone can claim asylum in any other country, but also the 1951 Refugee Convention from the UN. So violation of international law, that's what the Tories are good at, really, if you think about it, in a limited and specific way. But now they're toying with the idea of sending asylum seekers, and this is the front page of the Times today, sending asylum seekers to Ascension Island. Yeah, well, exactly. Well, Ascension Island is in the South Atlantic. It's 400 miles from any land. It has a population of 900. It's tiny. It's this wee little rock that doesn't have enough food or water or electricity to put more people on the rock. It doesn't have a hospital. The Tories have already looked into using Ascension Island as somewhere to put refugees. But they've already looked at it and they've gone, oh, hang on, we can't do this because there won't be enough water, there won't be enough food, there won't be a hospital on the island in case any asylum seekers get ill. Also, it cannot be a permanent place for asylum seekers to stay for whatever reason, so they're still going to have to deal with another country. Now, Rwanda is probably out, although the Court of Appeals goes to the highest level, so it's gone through a lower court which said that, okay, it's okay, right? And then it went through a slightly higher court which says it's not okay because the human rights records aren't great and we can't guarantee that these people won't be deported back to where they came from by the Rwandan authorities. So the government has been scrabbling around trying to find some other international partners to partner up with. Ghana has been mentioned in the west of Africa. We've got Nigeria, which is in the central west. We've got Namibia, which is where they filmed Mad Max, down in the south of Africa. And we've got Morocco, which is currently occupying a large part of Western Sahara in which there is a massive refugee camp, which is just over the border in Algeria as a result of the war that started in the 1970s. That is just a stalemate at the moment and has never actually been adequately sorted out. So countries that produce refugees are being looked at by this government for somewhere to put refugees. And the last one is brilliant, Niger. I don't know if you've been keeping up in current events, but Niger is about to start off possibly the Third World African War after the first two Congolese wars of the late 90s, early 2000s, which killed 6 million people, was it? Can someone look that up for me? Find out how many people died in those wars that no one heard of in the turn of the millennium. Yeah, I think it was 6 million, maybe it was more. It was a lot of people who died because Congo got involved, and then, DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, got involved. That's where it all kind of kicked off, and then Uganda got involved, and Rwanda and Burundi and Niger. And did Niger? No, I don't think Niger got involved in that. We could be looking at another one of those wars kicking off in the region of the Sahel, because neighbouring countries of Burkina Faso and Mali have also had military insurrections over the last couple of years, and will probably side with Niger against the African Union, who are saying at the moment, oi, get a roadmap back to democracy, get these democratically elected leaders out of jail, stop, pissing around, and basically, sort your SHIT out. So anyway, Niger was considered. This is in the throes of a military coup. I mean, for God's sake, it's kind of painful. Anyway, Ascension Island, this tiny little island in the South Atlantic Ocean, has already been found by a feasibility study carried out by no other than the Foreign Office. I mean, to be unsuitable as a place to put refugees. One of the other places that the government has looked at is the Falkland Islands, which they thought was too politically sensitive because people died defending the Falkland Islands. And you can imagine someone going on the telly and saying, my son didn't die in fighting in the Falklands so that refugees could be housed there or something. I don't know. But I just want to focus on something that Enver Solomon, who's the chief executive of the Refugee Council, has said about this. And I'm going to quote him here. It is time for this government to stop its obsession with unworkable and inhumane schemes that treat people like human cargo, and address the shocking mismanagement of the asylum seekers with seriousness and accountability. Wouldn't that be nice? So I'm going to get into your chat in a moment. If I just shrink it, I just shrunk it down. Yeah. So human cargo. That's a really horrible and great way of putting it. Simultaneously horrible, simultaneously great, because it's very true. I see that some of my frames are dropping out here. I'm sorry. I hope the audio's all right so you can continue watching this. Obviously, I'm on holiday at the moment, so I'm cutting into my holiday time to talk to you good people. And the internet is not amazing. It's okay, for downloading, but uploading in a lot of places is restricted. And as I found out when I first moved to BT, like a few years ago when I started doing my live broadcasts, I was like, I need a faster internet. And I went with BT because they had guaranteed speeds. It wasn't until I signed up for them for 2 years that I realized it was guaranteed download speeds, not upload speeds. And upload speeds are pretty much never guaranteed unless you get a business account, which costs a lot of money. I need a few more super chats in order to afford that. Put it that way. Anyway, a big shout out to everyone in the chat here. We've got Dave, we've got Duke, we've got Dave again, talking about maybe the cricket. We've got Master Templar, we've got the Great British Video Gamer, we've got Jan, we've got Sam, we've got One Angry Pagan is in the chat. Our favourite socialist is here. We've got Trevor, we've got Admiral Pegasus, we've got Vendetta is in the chat, always good to see Vendetta. Nick and Diff, always good to see Nick. We've also got the Great British Video Gamer there. We've got Gabriel. Catching this for the first time live feels like being in the cinema after years of COVID. Oh, well, nice to have you on board, mate. We've also got Jane and we've got Skylar. I know what the Weezers, make them disappear, at least that's what I heard. Well, we're going to get into this in a moment, but I want to talk about the Australian system, so Australia had a similar thing going on about 20 years ago, where the politics there, they got bored with all the stuff that was going on in Australia because the fighting climate change or stopping the coal and oil and gas fueled companies from from riding roughshod over the rights of Australians, and especially Indigenous Australians. That was all put to one side because boat people, there was an absolute obsession with boat people. And there was a little sketch, little cartoon in one of the newspapers at the time, and it was these Aussies on the beach in their board shorts with placards saying, "Boat people not welcome, refugees go home, Australia's full," all that kind of stuff. Australia's not full. Believe me, trust me on this one. Australia is not full. It's not even nearly full. Even the habitable areas are nowhere near full. Anyway, the point being that the caption was two Aboriginals who were standing nearby, and one saying to the other, "Huh, wish we thought of that." Which brings me to a point I want to make overall on this, is that the reason why so many countries think of the UK as somewhere, so many people from countries go to UK because they believe it's a place they will be safe, is because of our history. And it's a weird one. I've said before that we should be ashamed of what we did in the name of empire. But the reality is it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And for every awful, awful thing we did something even worse. However, having said that, the image that Britain has projected around the world for many, many years has been that we play by the rules of cricket, and that's why we can be trusted. Okay, fair enough, we possibly shouldn't have invaded countries and taken all their stuff in the name of free trade, which never really existed, but that's another story. But at least, unlike those other lot from over there, at least the British had a rule book and they stuck to it. We didn't always stick to it, but we gave the impression that we stuck to it. We told people that we did. We played by the rules of cricket, by the laws of cricket, by we tried to allocate situations fairly, whether you were from that region originally or whether you were a British person who was living there as a colonist or an empire builder or whatever. We didn't actually in practice, but this was the projection that we put across around the world to all of the countries that we invaded, which is nearly all of them. So you've got to understand why people think of coming to the UK and why they are possibly a little bit surprised of their treatment coming here to the UK, considering we were one of the first signers of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. It was a document that was half written by people who were from the UK. And we look at this situation now, we go, well, why are we treating these people so badly? Like almost like the white people treated the Aboriginals in Australia when they got there. I mean, oh God, absolutely shocking. I've got some stories that I could tell, but it's too early in the morning for that kind of thing. Thank you very much to David Faulkner there for dropping 78 Hong Kong dollars into the chat. The biggest war currently on the planet, which has killed more innocents than Ukraine, is in Ethiopia, but doesn't get much coverage as it's brown people. Yes, David, I couldn't agree more. So there's been instability in Ethiopia now for the last few years, which is really quite sad because the leaders were actually given, I think they got the Nobel Peace Prize, didn't they, for managing to sort of quell any kind of like, not uprising, but managing to sort of make things simmer down somewhat. But the problem is, it's always going to be a problem, that Ethiopia is surrounded. Ethiopia, the only country that wasn't colonized in the whole of Africa, the whole continent of Africa, it was only one of the 54 and possibly 55 countries of Africa that was never colonized. However, all the countries around it were. So you have places like Eritrea, which was colonized by the Italians. You have places like Djibouti, which was colonized by the French. You have places like Somalia, which was, again, the Italians, and British Somaliland, which is, was the British. So the borders around Ethiopia, Kenya was a British colony, and then you've got Uganda, you've got South Sudan. All those borders were drawn by British people using British maps. And what they did was they split groupings of people apart, linguistic groupings and tribal groupings, and they pushed groups together that didn't necessarily get along. And this caused trouble. Well, it was the old divide and rule concept, but obviously that's caused trouble down the line because in the 1950s, when the decolonization process really started in earnest, the newly independent African countries decided to keep the borders as they were. And Eritrea was actually absorbed into Ethiopia for many years until the early 90s, when it actually got independence from Ethiopia, because they see themselves as a different group. They are a little bit different. Christianity is the primary religion in Ethiopia. Coptic Christians they are. In Eritrea, it's 50-50 between Muslim and Christian. So obviously you've got religious lines there, because the gap across the Red Sea, that tiny little gap between them and Yemen, is very big. It's not very big at all. So a lot of people were coming over from the Arabian Peninsula into Eritrea and the other way. And so Islam got a foundation there. This is going back centuries. This is nothing new, but it's around that area now. The border between Eritrea and Ethiopia has been closed since forever, and since they split into two different countries. And that area now is still mined, still problems going on. But again, to go back to my main point, the only reason why these things are happening in the world right now are a knock-on effect of what Europeans did to these places when they colonized them. Or even in the case of Ethiopia, it didn't get colonized, but all the countries around it did, so it didn't get to draw its own borders. And any country that didn't get to draw its own borders is generally going to be a little bit less stable. A lot of the conflicts around the world that weren't about religion have been about borders and where the borders should be. And that's why I understand why the leaders of these newly independent African countries were like, let's leave the borders as they are. But that's obviously stored up trouble for the future, as we've seen in Nigeria, where the north is very Muslim and the south is very Christian, or in Cote d'Ivoire, same thing, or in Sudan, which actually split in two about 13 years ago, 12 years ago. 12 years ago, I think this month was it? South Sudan became a country, South Sudan being predominantly animist, actually, and the north of Sudan obviously being very fundamentalist Islam. So, I mean, yes. Anyway, the point I was making is I understand why people want to come here. I understand why people believe that they will be given a fair hearing if they come to the UK. A fair hearing for their case for asylum if they come to the UK. And now we're trapped in this catch-22 of you can't claim asylum unless you step on British soil. But if you step on British soil by any other means than the legitimate way of buying a ticket on a ferry or buying a ticket on a plane, which you're not allowed to do because you're an asylum seeker, and you might not have the valid passport or visa or whatever to do that, you can't claim asylum. It's one hell of a catch. It's the best there is. It is a catch-22 that the government has invented. And now they're saying to just make things even worse for people. You know, it's already pretty bad. The situation is saying, right, now we're going to ship you off to Ascension Island where there's not enough food or water or hospital supply or hospital. And this is what is going on in the mindset of the Conservative Party at the moment. They look at people fleeing war, fleeing persecution, not as humans. They see them as political collateral. That's all they are to them. Hey, let's make some money. Let's get some power out of these people. They're being used as scapegoats. This has happened time and time again through history. But we've got to stop doing this. We absolutely need to stop doing this. And if and when Labour win the next election, they have got to put the house in order. They've got to pull out the bits of the illegal Migration Act that are literally illegal. And they've got to set up safe routes for people who want to come and claim asylum, which is their right. It's their human right to do that. From anywhere, by the way. It doesn't have to be from somewhere in Africa or the Middle East. It could be from North Korea. It could be from South Korea if you feel you are being persecuted. And there's a lot of LGBT plus people around the world who feel like they are being persecuted in their country or are being persecuted. I mean, look at the rights of LGBT people in Uganda now. They're moving on to wanting the death penalty for people who are homosexual. You see people in the government in Iran. Iran is one of my favorite countries in the world. It's a beautiful country. The people there are just most beautiful, incredible, intelligent, hospitable people you would ever hope to meet. The government is shit. And the government thinks that homosexuals are the worst thing to ever be dreamt of by their God. Because obviously we're all made by their God, or our God, or gods. and they decided to make 10% of us gay. Funny that. Anyway, so yeah, in Iran, people are still executed for being gay. And so yeah, if someone is gay and they're being pursued by the Iranian authorities, I would like to give them shelter in the UK. Because there's another point here, which obviously we can't bang on about enough. We need these people. We've told all these people from Eastern Europe to bugger off home because of Brexit. And now we don't have enough people. We've got staff shortages all over the place. And we can have people come from other countries and work here who want to work here. And we ban that as well. While you're getting your asylum application process, which this government is taking years instead of weeks to do on purpose, so the backlog builds up, so the amount of people being housed in hotels goes up, so the bill goes up, so they can put it on the front cover of their horrible shit rag magazines, like the Sun and the Mail. They're not newspapers. They don't tell you news. They tell you their opinion about what the government, they just spout out what the government tell them to, essentially. But yeah, it is just it more infuriating than I have the words to communicate with good people that we have a crisis going on at the moment. Not enough people. Too many old people. Not enough people to look after the old people. I mean, it's not just jobs that we don't want to do as well. There's jobs that we want to do, but we just don't have the person power to do it, right? I mean, you've got people coming to this country. Thousands of people coming every week. Desperate with everything they've got. Paying people smugglers thousands of pounds to come here. When, if they've got the money to pay a people smuggler, right, I'm going to go with me on this, right? They can afford to stay in another country for a few weeks while their claim is processed before they have to get on a rickety boat and risk their lives and risk their children's lives to come here. I'll go even further. It's a lot cheaper to process people in another country. They go to the British Embassy, they get a number, they go to the website, they put all the details into the website. It gets processed in whichever country they are in. They could be in their own country. Do it on the sly. There are ways of doing it. We've done it for Ukraine. We've done it for Hong Kong. We did it for certain people in Afghanistan, although that, overall has been a cluster F. But we can do it. We can do it. We choose not to because we want to scapegoat people coming from other countries because we think they're evil. And this is a deep-seated racism in the British psyche. Even so much as people whose ancestry is from other places. Obviously, when we look at the actions of Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman and Priti Patel and James Cleverly and, all these people who you would expect to think surely they, more than anyone else, would have their eyes open to the fact that we are all one race. We are all one human population. And whatever one country does affects all the other countries. It just does. It's the way of the world. And especially when it's a powerful country like the UK, the effect just ripples around the planet. And I know we're not as powerful as we used to be. I don't mind that. I think that's probably a good thing. We should be proportionate to our size. But also, if we are going to go propagating the myth that we always played by the rules of cricket, that we always stood by the letter of the law, no matter what. If an Aboriginal killed some Australian settlers, they will be put to death. But if some Australian settlers killed an Aboriginal, they will be put to death. That didn't actually happen. I don't think that anyone faced the death penalty for what was done to the Australian Aboriginals. If you want to have some nightmares, look up what happened to the last two, well, the purported last two Tasmanian Aboriginals. Have a look at that. Have a look what the British did. It's not nice. It's not nice. But, if you're going to make up that myth, if you're going to propagate it around the world and say, this is the people that we are, we play by the rules of cricket, well, damn well play by the rules of cricket. Play by the rules that you have set yourself by signing up to the UN Declaration of Human Rights, by signing up to the Refugee Convention. Live by those rules. And if you're going to project yourself around the world as a nation of fair play, then we have to stop demanding that we treat everybody fairly. And that means everyone. Although we seem to be more obsessed with the fact that some millionaire can't get a bank account for millionaires. It's just been dominating the headlines the last few weeks. But there you go. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the chat right now because I'm going to wrap up soon. Graham Dude, no one knows the rules of cricket. Indeed. I love your work as a translator and content reviewer. Oh, thank you. Too many people do not even know when they're being played, says Audrey. You are absolutely right. Lee says, if they had an AI voice read and it took ages, it was crying, laughing emoji, etc. Well, Regan, I live near the coast in just 2 hours on a boat and could reach North Africa. Admiral Pegasus says, Labour need to ask France if their suggestion of processing centre in France is still available and start processing claims there instead of working through the backlog in the UK. Yeah. Or even, and I know this is going to sound mad, but just set things up on all of the high commissions and British embassies around the world, and there's a lot of them, where people can go and get a number. They can go and get a number to apply for asylum. And what will happen is you'll be given an opportunity to give all your evidence, right, and put forward your case. You will then go to the embassy on a specified date, and we will pay for people to do this as their job, because this will be cheaper than sending people to Rwanda. It will be a lot cheaper than sending people to Rwanda. It will be a lot cheaper than trying to put people on a barge. I mean, not just our attitude towards people from other countries just doesn't make any moral sense or legal sense. It doesn't make any economic sense. What we're doing is costing us more to do it this way. Which is, as you can tell by my raised tones there, it's a little bit frustrating. It's just, this is a bad idea. From top to bottom, from left to right, north to south, east to west. It is a bad idea. We can set things up so that there's someone in every, when I say there's loads of them, I mean, there's not more than 200, is there? Because there's not more than 200 countries. So yeah, and some countries don't even have a British embassy. They have an honorary consulate or something like that, an honorary consul. I know they had that in Congo because that's who got me out of jail there. Thanks, Dominique. Anyway, the point being, it's just, this is insanity. And what is the definition of insanity, apparently, according to the internet? It's doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. So the front page of the Murdoch-owned Times newspaper, the mouthpiece of the government that is the Times newspaper, run exclusively almost by privately educated rich people who want you to know what they think about everything. They're reporting that the government is considering Ascension Island for putting people. And I've got a better idea. Which is all the people who are in charge of this country right now. All the people in government, I want them on South Georgia Island, which is even further away than Ascension Island and even more remote. And there's even less food. And leave them to battle it out amongst themselves. Maybe we could set up some video cameras there and make a wonderful reality TV show. What should we call it? 300 Tories on an island. Who will survive and what will be left of them? Anyway, I'm going to wrap up soon, but thank you so much for joining me. The fact of puny. The other myth is that British built roads and railways to benefit the locals, when in fact they did. So to transport raw materials to the coast and armies to the coast inland. That's very true. Fact of puny. Very good point. Well made. I took my stepdaughter's homework assignment. History assignment, she was looking into the British Empire, and one of the things it said was, but the British Empire wasn't all bad, built some railways and democracy. And I'm like, do they have railways in Japan? And she's like, yeah. They have the fastest railways in the world in Japan. I'm like, were they ever colonized? No. Okay. A nation of fair play. I'll complain it in my home language of Welsh, but I can't speak it because of English fair play. The Irish famine was English fair play. Yes, Jez. Exactly. Sorry, I wasn't saying that we actually did. I kept on trying to point out that we didn't actually play by our own rules, but we put the idea around the world that we did. That's what we exported around the world, that the British were always on to the fair play, fair play, fair play. And let's point out as well that the Irish potato famine was exacerbated by free trade, by the free trade absolutionists. So back in the day, you had this sort of ideological warfare between the people who were protectionists, who wanted to just have trade within the British, as it was then, the Empire, and the East India Company, which was a company running entire countries, which is a whole nother topic. But essentially, you had people who thought, no, we should get rid of tariffs, we should get rid of everything else, we should just have free trade absolutism. And as a result of that, that led to not just the famine in Ireland, from which the population still hasn't recovered, but also numerous famines in India, in which millions of people died, because the British were still exporting food from those countries when those countries really needed their food. And we're still doing it today, to this very day. Last week, Rishi Sunak gave out 100 new licenses for drilling oil, most of which is not going to come to the UK, because it's free trade absolutism. And this is where the Brexit side of things and the free trade thing just kind of knock head together, and it just seems a bit mad to me, because it makes no sense that you have these free trade absolutists talking about the EU being protectionist, and you're like, yeah, but it's protectionist in itself, so that if you want to buy something from the EU, it's a lot easier and cheaper than buying it from outside the EU. That's how it's set up, quite rightly, as most countries do around the world, especially the USA, fighting against people who are like, oh no, but we should open up to free trade to everywhere, by making it so we have to pay tariffs on anything we sell, or the customer has to pay tariffs on anything that we sell to them who live in the EU. And I'm like, that's the opposite of free trade. We had free trade before amongst some of the richest countries in the world, and we've got rid of that, and now we have tariffs. Good job, everyone. Good job. Graham's still on holes. Yes, I'm still on my jollies. But you know what? I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'll be replaced tomorrow by Phil Morehouse, obviously, because it's Tuesday. So he'll be taking on the morning brew then, and on Wednesday, Phil might have to fill in for me. Fill in for me, because there's a good chance that I will be travelling at that time. Audrey McGrendry, I've lost count on how many times the Tories have told the Scots there is no oil left. Oh yeah, good point, Audrey. All good points today in the chat there. Yeah, Scotland couldn't possibly make it as an independent nation because all the oil's gone. Oh, by the way, here's 100 new oil licenses. Yeah, don't wonder Orkney wants to join Norway. The Bengal famine around the time of Clive of India in the 18th century was also the best of British, says Skylar. Yeah, Clive of India, who was horrifically racist against people from India. Horrible, horrible man, who managed to get, the statues around the UK, and no one wants to put, well, some people want to pull them down because of his legacy, and some people are like, no, we can't deny history. And to anyone who hasn't got a degree in history, I will just say, if you want to learn about history, go and study history. You don't need a statue whose name you never look at in order for you to understand the crimes that the British committed around the world during the time of slavery, empire, colonisation, and the aftermath. Anyway, personally, I wish the Tories would go and keep their offshore wealth company and leave us alone, says Captain Bart Roberts. Couldn't agree with you more, Captain. And Mellow Maggots just dropped in £1.49 into the super chat. Thank you very much, Mellow Maggots. I really, really appreciate that. Any other super chats that are going to come in, I'm going to have to be quick because I've got to wrap up very, very quickly. If One Angry Pagan would like to run the James O'Brien listen along on Labour Social Discord server, that would be great if you could do that for us, One Angry Pagan. And if anyone wants to join that and have a little chat in the break, it is usually quite fun. And I'm usually there, but today I won't be because obviously I'm still with my family, and they're all hiding in the corner, being very quiet while I'm doing this. So I appreciate that for a moment. Thanks. They're outside. Skylar says, when we were taught about Robert Clive in school, he was treated as though he was a hero. Yeah, Cecil Rhodes, Rhodesia, southern and northern Rhodesia, which are now Zimbabwe and Zambia. Yeah, not a nice man. Not a nice man. The guy who said Stanley, the famous Henry Stanley, was it? The journalist who said, Dr. Livingstone, I presume. Ha, ha, ha. He's the guy who went round Congo, mapping it out for King Leopold. of the Belgian Congo fame, who, caused, I think it was 1 in 3 of the population to be killed in quite horrific ways. But we are diverting away from. We just wanted to touch on the history of our empire and the Commonwealth and why people around the world might want to come here to seek asylum. And the Tories running roughshod all over their hopes and dreams, and all over my hopes and dreams of the Tories being all yeeted into the sea by a giant catapult. One day. One day, my friends, one day. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us in the chat here. Always really lovely to hear what you've got to say about stuff. I won't be back till Friday, but I might do a video on Thursday if I can, if I'm not completely knackered from traveling, because obviously it's me, I travel slowly, and getting anywhere takes a long time, because I can never do something as simple as getting a plane straight to the destination that I want to go to, because that'll just be too easy. But this will be our last broadcast from here in Greece, and until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and